Hey guys, if you're new to the contracting world, or maybe you're just starting your own business, this is a great episode to tune into. John from Passion Pools and Ponds shares a lot of great insights on some of the hard lessons that he's had to learn over the years with his contracting business. He shares lessons on what he took away from how to stand out amongst a crowd of people who have been in the industry for, sometimes 30 or 40 years. At the beginning, we talk about how John helped pioneer bringing natural swimming pools to Ontario, Canada, how he incorporates nature into his designs, and then the second half of the episode focuses more on contractor-based lessons, some of the hardships he's had to go through, and all that. Strap in for the ride, and thanks for tuning in on this Easter weekend. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the PromoMinds podcast interview series. We are continuing on with our contractor series. Meet your contractor is kind of what I've come up with this. So today we have a very special guest. He's a very passionate guy, loves his kids. He's an outdoorsman. He loves doing kiteboarding, snowboarding, all that stuff. And he is the owner of Passion Pools and Ponds. And I'm so excited to have him on. We've had a lot of great chats over the years. So please welcome to the show, Jonathan Riehl.
Hey, everyone.
John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome.
That's amazing. It's always good to see you, always good to chat with you. We've been buddies for a few years now. I've always appreciated our conversations and, kind of helping me out in the early days in the swimming pool industry and, not losing your stuff on me when I've screwed up a little bit. So I really appreciate that.
Well, there's grace for everything. I want grace, so I have to extend it, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I want to get right into it here. Could you please share a little bit about your background? How did you get started in the pool industry? What led to the start of Passion Pools?
Well, without getting too involved in it, it really comes down to, I guess, just a passion for what I do. Every day going to work, even back when I was working for someone else, my previous employer, it really wasn't work to me. It was it was fun. So, it's easy to get up every day and go to work when it's fun. So it was a lot of fun going to work, and I enjoyed what I did. There was, there's ups and downs in everything you do, but I really enjoyed what I did. When I caught wind that my employer at the time was thinking about retiring, that's when I sort of, started to make a little shift in my objectives. And my wife at the time, I guess, said, "Well, why don't you go out and work with your hands?" I remember coming home one day and complaining about work. There was something that happened, and my wife said to me, "You have no right to complain until you get out there and actually do something about it." And it was at that moment where I just made a little shift, and I decided to step out into the world of entrepreneurship. At that point in time, I wasn't going to be a competitor of my previous employer. Okay, he was still in the game, and so I sort of made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to step. If he was quoting a job that I was involved, that the same customer had called, that I wouldn't get involved in that. I guess that's the gist of it. Really, I wasn't going to get involved. But to my surprise, to my awe, and to my surprise, I really never came across a single person who had, in my general area, who had called him or was quoting against me. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yeah. It seems like you had that kind of respect there he kind of showed you the ropes, so you're not looking to take business from him, and kind of do it yourself, right?
Yeah. Sort of. I don't know if it's just sort of a biblical principle, David and Saul. Without getting too biblical about it, I just had such a reverence for Wayne, for my previous employer. Wayne was his name. I had a reverence for him. I had a deep respect for what he had taught me through the years, and I didn't want to step on his toes, so to speak. But out of that, I was always asking clients, I think there was two or three people who had called him, but they never got a call back.
Mm.
Or they called him, but he called back maybe 3 or 4 weeks later. Okay.
Gotcha.
So it was those early stages of business where I began to learn that what made me different. What could I do as a new entrepreneur, someone who's stepping out into the business world, that would make me different and set me apart from those that have 40 years, 35, 40 years experience in this industry. So all of a sudden my ears perked up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something a little different. I'm showing up. So this
Yep.
is what I guess this is what started to separate me from the big guys
Yep.
in the industry.
So you were really starting to pay attention to, what your customers were really after, and trying to
Yeah.
hone in on that. Maybe you
Well,
could share a little
that's
bit more about that.
yeah, that's just it, Steve. So I think it was like, so I think I said earlier that I never really competed against him, and I never really did. It's honestly, it became more of a preference in a sense than a competition. Does that make sense? I'm not necessarily competing, but I became almost preferred. And I
Mhm.
guess the story that to finish that up a little bit was I got down, I got further down the line, and it came down to we had two quotes. The customer was looking at two quotes. You know, one was from Wayne, my previous employer, and myself. And immediately I was like, okay, hands out. I don't want to compete with Wayne. However, this was my at the time my accountant. Okay, a financial advisor, accountant, and he
Yep.
says, "So why should I choose you over Wayne? Yours is $10,000 more than Wayne's." I said, "Okay. Well, when did Wayne call you back?"
Yep.
Like 3 weeks later. Okay, when did I show up? Well, you were there right away. Okay, well, that's okay. That's one thing. So I hope that I, shared the message of that I'm going to deliver, right? And that's basically it. It really came down to delivering. It's not that just that I was his, client at the time, but that I was showing him that I would deliver. Looking
Absolutely.
back, now looking back, you know, would I at the time have actually delivered as much as Wayne? Now, realistically, like between you and me, Steve, I was a newbie in the world of pools. That was at least 13 years ago now. Okay, very new on my own as a contractor. I've been doing this for 25 years. Okay, but as a contractor, Wayne had 35 years experience. I truly believe today that Wayne would have delivered a better product. I truly believe that today. If I held apples to apples, I truly believe that today. But that client chose me because I showed up and I did what I said I was going to do in those early phases, and that is what basically separated me from those long-standing fellows that
Yeah.
have been in the industry for so long, Steve. So that I would say that was an early learning curve for me as a business. Yep.
Hey guys, if you're into hiking at all, I highly recommend subscribing to my YouTube page, Steve Leslie Hikes. That's Steve Leslie Hikes on YouTube. I have a lot of content on there from some of the crazy hikes that I've been on, including Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. And it'd be really cool to connect on there. So please check me out. Thanks. That's really cool, and I really think it really speaks out the fact that you were able to pick up on these little things that they're not so little in the grand scheme of things. Where you said you were the one that showed up right away, and you know a lot of times you might find that, especially now, like your product is, you have a superior product, and but at the time, like, just being a newbie might not have been the case, but you showed up, and that's like, one of the big rules of success is you have to show up, and the fact that you were willing to uh, commit to that, and show up when you say you were going to show up, um, came out huge. And we were kind of talking off camera a little bit about, these things that help separate your business, and that was one of the principles that you had mentioned. And I'm curious, maybe you can share a little bit more insights onto what separates your business, like how you run your business, because the way that you were describing, you are more or less, you kind of mentioned it in your description. There was, you're more or less competing in a way that no one else was. And so
Correct.
maybe you can talk on how you actually run your business that separates you from the rest of the people.
That is correct, Steve. So we are in a very competitive market. It seems like everybody's fighting over the same piece of bread. You know, So
Mm-hmm.
knowing that going into business, I was a little bit, had a bit of anxiety, stepping out, thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to compete with so and so and everybody that's out there? So I thought one thing that I could do to sort of separate myself was to focus on what I love, what makes me passionate, what makes me passionate
Yep.
about what I do. Now, originally, when I started into business, I started with the name John's Pools and Ponds.
Yep.
Okay. I thought, oh, that's a great business. I love ponds. I like doing what I do. Um, but what separated me was was my passion. What I really felt is that I did have this passion for what I was doing. Like every day was fun. When I got up to go to work, it was fun. I loved what I did. I truly did. I didn't go home and just the day was done. Even when I was an employer, I went home and I went to the library and I got every darn book that was out there on landscaping and hardscaping and pool building. And I began to take notes and I started drawing pictures. And I think I still have books on my notes on how to excavate and the type of fill and the compaction rates and how things are supposed. I was passionate, absolutely
Mhm.
passionate about a product that was going to just, I don't know, supersede what the guys are doing out there right now. And but one thing that stood out to me is that there's a lot of things that guys aren't doing now. Like they're not making things look natural. It looks like a parking lot in a sense. Like, yeah, they're paving it.
Yep.
Pave Paradise put up a parking lot, so to speak, where we could go in there and we could really make something look natural and give people that. Um, I mean, I grew up in the north. I grew up in the wild northern Ontario, and for me, nature is everything. Being out in the wildlife, hunting, fishing, loving every day. That's what I do. And And water and the sound of water, rocks, trees, fragrance of nature is everything to me. This is how I find my peace. If I really want to find who I am, I need to go out into nature. And what I learned is that people aren't, everyone is similar in that we are so primal in that nature. We really, everybody essentially really wants that. When they're thinking of a backyard, when they're thinking of a place, they really want to connect to their senses. They want to connect back to nature. So Steve, it's a really long story, but I would find myself in the long winter months sitting and just enjoying nature in my home. I had an aquarium, and I used to plant aquariums. I used to have a planted aquarium. And without getting too involved in the story here, my planted aquarium filter eventually it quit. One day the power went out and it never fired up again. And all the plants that were in the aquarium miraculously were filtering the water. The water was being filtered by the plants in the aquarium. And so I don't know how long, I couldn't tell you how long but the filter was off. But one day I discovered that the filter was off. So I thought I'll just run a little experiment and I'll see how long I can go with this filter being off. The plants were filtering the water. The fish were swimming around healthily for, I'm going to say, at least 2 months before it eventually crashed. Wow. Now we're talking no filtration at all. Just the natural ecosystem. Lights were timed on a 12-hour cycle. So the lights were the only controlled variable that I had on a 12-hour cycle. That was it. And the rest of it was just simple. The medium in the soil, the plants themselves, of course, the fish providing nutrients to the plants, and that natural cycle of oxygen and carbon dioxide on-off light cycle. Simple as that. 2 months, Steve, in this small little 20-gallon aquarium, and I thought to myself, my God, why aren't we doing this for people? Why aren't we making this type of environment? Why are we pouring chemicals all over people in swimming pools? Why can't we create a natural environment? So I told this to my foreman at the time while I worked for Wayne. I said this to the foreman at the time. And he was at the Toronto Pool and Spa Expo that year. He found BioNova. It's a company called BioNova. Everyone out there, you can check them out. They're from Germany. They came to Toronto to try to open up a new market here in Canada. That's the only time I think they've ever came. I'm guessing it was around maybe early 2000s. I couldn't tell you the exact day that was. But anyway, Steve, my foreman at the time, grabbed a brochure and was kind enough to think of me and brought it to me and said, John, wouldn't you know it? They've been doing it for 35 years over in Germany. Oh my goodness. Wow. I couldn't believe it. I was flabbergasted. I honestly couldn't believe this. Guess where I was that winter?
Whereabouts?
Germany. I jumped on a plane and I flew to Germany that winter and I met with the BioNova team. And it was like the next year that I decided to explore the idea of going out on my own in business. I eventually got married that same year. And I think it was a year later that I actually went on my own in business. 3 years to the day that I decided to explore this idea. It was simply an idea. Yep. So since then, long story short, Steve, I've built 6 natural swimming pools. Wow. Not many. Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a bit of hardship in this whole story, is that what I've discovered is that it's not, you can chase wild horses so far.
Yep.
Right. But if that's all I did, I would be broke. Right. At the end of the day, Steve, you have a core business, you have business. As a model, you have to focus on your core business. Yep. And then if you want to chase wild horses, that's fine, but make sure you're not wandering too far from the core, right? Of what makes you profitable and that type of thing. However, that did separate me from the masses as someone who has an understanding of nature and how to bring that into your backyard and to really focus on, you know, separating myself, I guess, a little bit from the competition.
Hey, if you're struggling with trying to develop a more positive mindset, one book I would recommend checking out would be John Maxwell's Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. It's one of those books that changes the perspective on failures and when you lose and all the good things that you can take away from every experience. So that's Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn by John Maxwell. Check it out. All right, let's get back to the show.
To just touch a little bit on another challenge that came up when we were looking at building natural swimming pools here in Ontario. Okay, because I feel like I know we were the pioneers of bringing that here to Ontario. So that's what it separated me. We were the first to do this here in Canada. Like, I don't know anyone else that was doing that here. And I remember my first client that literally said, "Are you ready to let me be your guinea pig?" Like, that was pretty awesome. And, that was amazing because she truly was a guinea pig. We were using technology from the swimming pool industry and incorporating that into a full-blown natural pool industry that was primarily concrete based. Okay. So, like the concrete pools lend themselves well in the natural pool world. And there's a lot of different methods of natural pools. We don't want to get into all the details of how to build them, but what I was trying to incorporate was the one pot method. Simply put, we have a swim zone and a constructed wetland encompassing or surrounding that swim zone. The swim zone being 50% of that area, and the natural wetland area encompassing another 50% of that area. It's really simple. The math's pretty simple. I mean, of course, we have a lot of formulas that we continue to incorporate in the design process and the design phase to incorporate a natural, wetland type area. But the I guess at the end of the day, we were using vinyl liner technology, incorporating ponds into it as well. It really took it took every bit of my, at that time, probably 15 years experience. It took every ounce of experience that I had at the time. And she truly was a guinea pig. Did I learn since that point? Absolutely. But what an incredible person to allow me. Steve, you got to think about it from that perspective. She really was amazing. I'm proud to say that pool is still functioning and absolutely gorgeous today. And the one thing that she raved about, and she did a newspaper article on that pool, and she said, I do nothing. I do absolutely nothing to this pool. She did. She was a widow. She did nothing to this pool. She absolutely left it go. She did absolutely nothing. And the less she did, the better it was. It truly was. It grew so thick. It grew in so well. All the plants grew so well. They were filtering the water. Even the waterfall was perfect. Everything on it was absolutely splendid. And that pool is still going in Wellesley, Ontario today. So we're really proud of that. That was 9 years ago that I built that first pool.
More from the PromoMinds podcast coming up shortly. PromoMinds. Promote your brand, transform your business. I was wondering, because you had mentioned that, you've only done, a handful of these natural pools, but to take that style and that sort of inspiration from living up north and just enjoying being outdoors and the beauty of nature, how do you go about incorporating that into like a suburban backyard with a more traditional swimming pool?
Hmm. Well, I do like to look at native plants. When I'm thinking about my designs, I'm looking at how to make it as native as possible. So, for example, I don't work with, I mean, I can if a client really wants me, but I'm not bringing in Pennsylvania bluestone. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm usually working with what we have here. So, oftentimes I'll think about, like, what I'll ask a customer a question like, do you have a cottage? Where did you grow up? You know,
Yep.
and like often, like, where's your favorite beach? Or like, do you like the beach? Do you like to walk trails? Are you a northern person? Do you like the south? We're thinking about where they're going, what type of, what really brings them home, where's their resting place, because that's
Okay.
essentially what I'm trying to do. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to force my northern lifestyle on them, right?
Yep.
I want to bring something that's, home to them, into their designs. And there's some clients that just don't care. They just want something like more trendy. They want something trendy. They've seen some pictures on Instagram. Essentially, that's what they want. There's those, though, that they're just not sure, and they're looking for someone to give them some guidance. And so I'm trying to steer them into where home is for them, right?
Wow.
And I'm bringing a lifestyle experience out into their backyard. So, like, for me personally, white pine, you know, rocks, but I like outcropping. I'm
Yep.
thinking of an outcropping, and that's what also differentiates me in my designs. It's not just laying a stone down, but making an outcropping and then having a stone speak to that stone. Right. So
Yep.
I don't just place a stone, but I place another stone to speak to that stone. Does that make
Gotcha.
sense? It's almost
Yep.
like an ancient form of art, like in the Japanese form, where, like, nature, a rock will fall off of a cliff, and that rock will speak to the cliff. It says, hey, I came from you, right?
Yep.
So that's, and I'll do that in a miniature form. I'll do that in a miniature form in a backyard, and it won't just be a rock or a clump of rocks piled up in a corner. It would more resemble a gravel pit. It will be a rock that, was delivered there by nature, seeded into the ground, not just plunked on top of the ground, but seeded into the ground, and then maybe another rock that complements that rock, same color, same structure, same type of rock, and that but complements it, right? It's not going to be a blue rock with an orange rock.
Yep.
It might be a blue rock and a blue rock to just kind of complement that area. And it might have a function as well. So it's form and function. So it's gonna be beautiful, but it's also gonna function. It might be a place where you sit your bum. So it's gonna sit at the right spot. And that's, again, what's gonna differentiate our designs from just your average Joe who's just in there to, you know.
Yeah. It's
So
like it's like every aspect of the whole design has a purpose. It's not just placed willy nilly. It's how does this uh, how does this how does this work together as a unit, and how does it
yeah.
work both aesthetically and functionally in the backyard, creating that setting. Is that kind of
Steve,
what I'm getting?
that's exactly it. But to that is also my detriment. Okay, so what I mean by that is there's a certain amount of pride that goes into to doing this, and I've yet to find that individual who sort of sees that same vision. So from
Yep.
a duplicatable business model standpoint, it's really challenging. Okay. It really has been challenging on my well-being, my from because you can't be everywhere all at once, Steve. We know
Yep.
that, trying to duplicate yourself and oh, what's the term they're using today now? Scale your
Yep.
business. You know, it's almost next to impossible when you have that sort of level of excellence, right? Because people are hiring me because of that passion that I have, right? So to find another person with that same passion, Steve, from a duplicatable standpoint, it's really hard, right? It really is.
Yeah.
And that, if we're gonna position ourselves as being, a step above, trying to train and teach others to carry that same level of excellence. Yeah, so it involves me, really being there. If you're going to really take that level of excellence and time to put that rock right where it needs to be, and do that, type of work. Thus lies the issue,
Yep.
right?
I gotcha.
Would you agree, Steve? Can you relate with me on this? So where do we go
Yep.
in this conversation here today with the folks here listening, so that they understand the true the true nature of our hearts, right? Because I think there's a lot of people out there today, a lot of business owners as well. I want this message to not just be for the consumer, but for the business owner listening today, who really wants to, duplicate his business and be very profitable in what he does. At the end of the day, we want to do what we love, right? But when we're stretching ourselves too thin, it can be challenging. So, I've thought of a
I,
couple ideas. I've got a few ideas of how we could possibly do that. But at the same time, I don't have all the answers, Steve. I really don't. You know, I'm
yep.
still working on it.
I I totally understand where you're coming from, and you know, just from the people that I've talked to, they get to a certain size, and then they're almost forced to go into that mode where you have to what's the word? You have to be able to delegate things. And it is so difficult, especially those who have built their business from the ground up. And it's such a cherished, it's almost like a child to them, right? Like you
Mhm.
cherish it so much and you want to look after the overall brand, and your name is behind that, so you want to make sure that everything is up to your standards. And it's so hard to you know let some of those things go to begin with, even even if you have a rock star who is, let's say, almost at your level to be able to be that precise. It would still be extremely difficult to start letting them take responsibility for things. And
Mhm.
then you move on to, you don't know what you're getting to begin with, right? And that, therein lies another challenge of,
Yeah.
it's risky to let others come in. And so I totally understand
Yeah.
where that tension lies.
So I told, yeah. So Steve, so that's where we've been wrestling as a contractor, as a company, is learning to duplicate, right? Learning
Yep.
to, you know, make it so that, the passion that we have can be transferable, and then not lose some of that, the essence, right? The essence of it
Yep.
all. So it really comes down to, and this is the thing, is that we're always learning. We're really always learning. We're students of the trade. Everything has shifted in my life. It went from being a technician, a really, really good mechanic, so to speak, understanding the mechanics of how to do things. And then you might as well just throw all of that out the window when it comes to learning how to manage men, lead
Yep.
people, you know, while still trying to hold on to your technical abilities and all the things that you know how to do. Okay, that's the wrestle that you have as a business owner in the early phases. And that darn near bankrupted me, Steve. That really did in
Yep.
the early stages. Not necessarily the money, because we've always run a tight ship money wise. I've been really, really good with how I operate my business. I'll just share that real quick with my clients and also with um, business owners out there. Look, you need to get it in your head, guys, that you're never paying for your customer's job. You individually are never going to pay for your customer's job. No money out of your bank account, no money out of your line of credit is ever going to pay for your customer's job. Does that make sense, guys? The minute you figure that out, the minute you've got success, okay, your customer should always be paying for their job every step of the way. And you should never be spending your customer's money on your projects or your old bills or your old things. Okay, your customer's money is your customer's money. So you need to truly value that. If you truly value your customer's hard-earned money, they're giving you a deposit enough to cover the starting phases of that job. Okay, therefore, you should never have to come up with a line of credit. You really should. I've never, in all of my years of doing business since 2009, I've never needed a line of credit. Why? Why should I need to borrow money to operate my company when my
Yep.
customer is paying for their job? Like, I just don't, think about that for a moment. Why should I ever have to borrow money to run my company if my customer is paying for their job every step of the way? So, and I've got banker friends and guys that I know that for years that just, they're baffled by how I've run my business. Okay, I've run my company in such a way that I've never had to borrow money to operate my business, because I've set a value, a number value that might seem ridiculous to certain customers. Okay, for example, I'm taking a 20, sometimes 30% down payment. Okay, on $100,000 projects.
Yep.
Okay, for two reasons: is that it needs to hurt a little bit. Okay, it's a commitment. This is a non-refundable down payment, by the way. So this is something that I make very clear in the sales process, that I'm holding this position all winter long. I am committing my family, my life, my everything to you. You have that date that I've set in place. I'm going to show up on that day. Okay? So there's a value to the date that I'm putting down on the contract. And I'm committing to this person. I'm saying that we're going to show up on that day. You're paying this down payment. I'm going to show up, but also that money is going to secure them from inflation. Okay, I'm going to buy their steel walls. Steve, you can attest to this. I always had steel walls ready, sitting on order, on a skid. Whether it was in your yard or in my yard, it didn't matter, but it was ready, it was bought, it was paid for. Okay, liners ordered, ready. I'd rather be looking for it looking at it than looking for it.
Yep.
Okay, so I want everything that's going to go in the ground ready in my yard, sitting there. Okay, bought and paid for. Okay, and then that way we're not scrambling, we're not looking for skimmers, we're not looking for plumbing, we're not looking for parts. It's all sitting there ready to go. And to be honest, as a business owner, at the end of the day, the long term, after 5-6 years in business, you realize that 2% matters, 1% matters. Okay, you're adding a markup to every cost that comes to your business. If you're going to make a profit, you got to cover your fixed and variable overheads and a profit, right? If you're smart about business. And honestly, any one of you, if you want to just search me up, Passion Pool and Pond. If you want to talk business, you want to talk how to actually profit in business and how to overcome some of the obstacles, I'd be happy to share with you. I really would, because this has been a long time, a lot of pain in the process of learning this, right? Like I
Yep.
said, in the early phases, maybe 7, 8 years ago, I was actually forced, no choice, forced to actually follow these principles. I thought I was following them. I really wasn't. Okay. So, but I'm happy to share with you. I learned, and again, none of this is my genius. I didn't figure this out on my own. I followed a little secret: Michael Stone, Markup and Profit, and Profitable Sales. Okay, Michael
Wow.
Stone, Markup and Profit, and Profitable Sales. So those two books were my saving grace, guys. I would not be here today if it wasn't for those two books.
I will definitely add those into the show notes too.
Please
'Cause
do,
I'm going to be
Steve.
checking that out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. And the reason I say it's a lot is because you don't. What's the old saying? No one changes unless the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change.
Yep.
So
It's like the
pain.
old, it's the old, what's that story about the dog that's sitting on a nail and someone goes by and goes, "What's wrong with your dog?" And they say, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail." Well, why doesn't he move? Well, it doesn't hurt enough yet.
Right? That's exactly it. And I think a lot of business owners are like that. Oh, it still works today. It still works today. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
there's a lot of little things that we've done as a business that I can say we haven't changed because they worked.
Yep.
Like marketing when times are good. Market
Yep.
when times are good. Push your marketing, especially when times are good. Market the snot out of your business when times are good. Don't wait until like now when times are not good, guys. There's so many little things. I think we could do a whole nother session on some of those little nuances that separate you. Why is my phone ringing right now? Nobody else's phones are ringing. I've been talking to all my suppliers. The phone lines are dead. And I'm not bragging, I'm not boasting, but I can say that we really truly have, as a client, as a customer, sorry, as a business owner, we put the focus on our customer, and we've really tried to market ourselves as the expert in the area. Okay, not on Facebook, and although Facebook does help us, of course, but we're not trying to be the expert on Facebook, so to speak, right? It's but truly the expert in the area. There's one other guy in my area, there's a lot of different contractors that popped up over COVID, but I can only think of one other guy in my area, and I think of him as good competition because he truly is doing well in the industry. He truly is.
I know.
So yeah, there's the two of us in our area, and you know, good for
Yep.
him. I need good competition. I need some really true professional guys beside me that are trying to extend this industry, and I really want to see good contractors, guys. I'm sick and tired of contractors who are giving a bad rap to contractors.
Hmm.
There's so
I
many
I
guys that
agree.
don't even answer their phone. There's guys that don't call back. There's guys that aren't getting to their customer within 24 to 48 hours. 48 hours, by the way, is way too long. Throw that idea out the door. You need to be there before 9 a.m. the next business day. You need to answer that phone before 9 a.m. the next business day. Um, get a quote in their hand within a week. Guys, if you really want success, quote in the hand before the week, and it better be accurate. Fair and firm. Fair and firm. That's the word you want to use. So, guys, there's a lot of little things with regards to business that separates everyone. But if you really want to just be like the run of the mill guys, just keep doing what a lot of the guys are doing out there. And if you want to have fun with that whole thing, try hiring some contractors. Just try hiring some contractors to come and do some work for you. Have a lot of fun with that whole process. You will find out in a hurry what kind of a nightmare experience it is to have people that have, first of all, number one, no contract. Okay. There's so many contractors out there today with no contract. There's so many contractors out there today, number two, that do not collect a deposit. It's willy-nilly, no deposit. Well, so that means you can show up and come and go whenever you want. So the deposit should hopefully secure a time slot when you're coming and guarantee that you're going to show up on that day. If not, there better be an explanation, right? And I don't know about you, but I want somebody to show up when they said they were going to show up. That says to me they're going to do what they said they were going to do. So deposits collected, phones answered, and just a confidence and an assurance that the job is going to be done on time, on budget, and according to plan. So the other thing is too, no plan. A lot of guys don't have a plan. It's not in writing. There's no plan. There's no agreement. And at the end of the day, could be 10,000 more, could be 50,000 more. Who knows? Right?
Yep.
What a rigmarole. It's no wonder the industry is plagued with horror stories, right?
Yep.
So again, it doesn't take much to differentiate yourself. That's good news for you. If you're a new entrepreneur out there, guys, that's really, really good news for you, because you can differentiate yourself. And that's my testament. That's my story. You can differentiate yourself in an instant. You can be that guy. But don't let the pain of failure get you to that point. Okay, it took me almost bankruptcy before I realized what I had to do. Okay, no one teaches you this stuff in school. You don't learn this in high school. You don't learn this even in college. You really don't. This comes from just years of experience, and also being out there in the world of contracting and seeing the foolishness that goes on, not only by the contractors, but by the homeowners themselves who are hiring these contractors, thinking they're getting a deal, when at the end of the day, they found someone who was going to price it in such a way that they could under-deliver. That's it.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they just priced it in such a way that they under-delivered. That's it. That's really
John, I feel like you've just given a little master class here on how to run a business. And, like you said, if anyone out there is looking for some more detail on this and, want to have some good conversations with John, to definitely reach out. And I want to be respectful of your time, because I know you got to get going here. So we're going to have to do this again, because there's a lot that we have not got to. But I am curious with, and maybe you can touch on this just real quick, because we have had some conversations about this, and I do think it really does pertain to business owners in general. You had mentioned you had dealt with the pain of nearly going bankrupt. Going through the stresses of the pandemic and personal life and whatnot, trying to pull yourself back into a more centered space. If you had to give, just one or two pieces of advice to another entrepreneur, what would you have to say to them?
That one thing, as far as we talked about, like burnout, I truly think that's a whole nother story in itself. That's a whole nother talk, and I don't mind sharing with you a little bit more and getting vulnerable with those who are watching. I can attest to the fact that almost every year, I get to a point at the end of the season where I'm done. Like, I'm done. I can't do anymore. So I think I'm an expert in this. I truly do. And there really is I don't have the answer yet. However, I can share a few of the nuggets. I'm eating well. Number one, eating well, right? You've got it. Garbage in, garbage out. Okay. Far too often, guys like myself who are on the road, we're eating garbage, so some of the things I'm trying to do is just to keep some good, wholesome food in my glove box. I drive a nice big Denali. I can keep food in my center console. So just keeping good food, nuts, some whole grains, some granola, some things like that. Something that I can, and water, guys, water, right? So for myself, what I have to do is no alcohol. Okay.
Yep.
Zero alcohol during the summer months, especially. Okay. In the winter months, I don't mind to indulge if I'm traveling and so on and so forth. But in the summer months, zero alcohol. I can't do it. I just can't. If I'm going to perform on the top level, top tier, I have to just put that aside, right? And so a lot of the stresses, Steve, and again, this is why it's a whole nother talk, but a lot of the stresses that I'm acquiring come down to staffing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe poor staffing choices in some cases. All right, we've got our core guys. We've got the guys that have been around for many years. They're sticking to their guns. They're really good guys. But then every year for laborer positions, we have to hire new guys. Seasonal jobs tend to come with their perks, right? Their pros and cons. And one of those is that we're always looking for new men. And so it's challenging in today's society. And the only thing that gives me peace in that matter is that I'm not alone. Everyone that I speak to, every contractor, I might be the only one who's vulnerable enough at this point in time to admit it. But there's a lot of guys that I speak to who are experiencing the same thing time and time again. We're all looking for quality help, and in this new generation, it's hard to find. And so, if Joe or Sally or Henry, if they decide they're not going to show up for work that day, who has to fill those shoes?
Yep.
Well, there's no one else but the owner of the company who takes, at the end of the day, who takes the brunt of the responsibility, right? So I find myself some days digging trenches, Steve. I find myself in the backyards not only laying out the pool, in the machine, digging in some cases. I find myself driving trucks. I find myself in stone yards. I find myself in places that I just did not expect myself to be that day, because I had a plan for the day. The plan might have been that I was going to meet so-and-so here and collect a deposit there, and and do a final payment meeting and a pool orientation in Kitchener. But I'm somewhere in Listowel digging a trench because I've got I've got a service guy coming tomorrow to lay services, and one of my employees had a doctor's appointment that I didn't know about until today, right? And so, Steve, that can throw off a person's well-being so fast. And so I think, Steve, there really is no magic answer to that. I think there's highs and there's lows in this industry. There really is. There's victories. And so learning how to hire and train and retain good employees is where I think we're all striving to be, right?
Absolutely.
So, Steve, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the stresses, I think I've just touched on the tip of the iceberg there, right? I'm human, and I think you're human. You've experienced a lot of, and I know we've had some pretty good talks about, burnout and what that looks like for others, like for everybody. For me, burnout is not only, it's not just overextending my workload. It's having what you think is a suitable amount of workload, is a suitable, safe, healthy amount of work, and then having someone else throw a wrench into those plans, and it's no longer healthy anymore, right? Because it's a variable that you did not see coming. So what do we do as human beings to deal with that, Steve, I honestly don't have those answers. If I get real with you, I honestly don't have those answers. I think that all we can do is every year look at what we did last year and try something new, try something different. So in our next talk, Steve, I want to share with you maybe some of the things that I'm doing this year to differentiate, again, to try something new. And then we'll see how it turns out. Maybe we can have a meeting after our next meeting at the end of the year and we can talk about it.
Absolutely. I feel like you just did a perfect cliffhanger right there. So now anyone that's listening to this has to continue to look for your next guest appearance on the PromoMinds podcast. So
Steve, I want everyone to see me at the end of a season. I really do. Like right now, it's good. It's winter. I would love everyone to see is there an extra wrinkle here? Is there?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us on the show. And I know you gotta get going here. You got some dinner to make for one of your kids, and so I really appreciate it. And we will definitely talk soon. And thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Actually, lastly, can you just repeat where can people go to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on go straight to my website, passionpoolandpond.com. On there is my email, and be happy to connect through email anytime during business hours, guys.
Right on. And we will have that in the show notes below or in the description, wherever you're viewing this. So thanks
also
again,
check us
Jonathan.
out on Instagram as well. Instagram's got some awesome photos and some different reels of some of the work we've been doing, and you can chat with me on there as well.
Right on. All right, John. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome, Steve. Be good.
All right. So that was Jonathan Riehl from Passion Pools and Ponds. Like I said, we'll have his information in the show notes below so you can connect. And the books that he recommended by Michael Stone, I believe. I have not heard of those, so I'm definitely going to have to check those out as well. And as you can tell, he is a very passionate guy. You can tell it from his voice, just from how he gets into talking business and lessons that he's learned. So if you can take advantage of learning from a guy like him, definitely do it. He's an awesome guy. And, as I said at the beginning of this, I always appreciated our conversations, always enjoyed it. And so I hope you enjoyed the show today. That was like a little masterclass on running a business. It was awesome. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the PromoMinds podcast. I'm your host, Steve Leslie. And until next time, take care. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of PromoMinds podcast. I'm Steve Leslie. And if you want help crafting your message or sharing your story, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help. Love coming up with ideas, and we can have a nice chat. So reach out to promominds@gmail.com and I'll respond. Take care.